What's up, y'all? So I'm making a video discussing why I believe being a teenager is the most horrible thing ever, and it's like the worst. It's probably the worst years you're ever gonna experience. Why? I just want to discuss why it's so horrible. For the majority of people. So hold on, I'm trying to adjust this camera. I just want to backtrack and reminisce on my years as a teenager and why it was almost unsurvivable. And a lot of the times being a teenager, these are huge turning points, in a person's life. Huge turning points, and it can improve your life for the better or the worse, or the worse, And yeah, it's just for a lot of people, it's just a really shitty, just really tough time, and it's very horrible when you think about it. And my experience wasn't typical, I didn't have the typical teenage experience, especially how they show it in the movies. I didn't have the really typical teenage experience. It wasn't really R-rated, my experience, but it wasn't really PG either. So I just reminisce and get into it. So, you know, for me being a teenager, I was like extremely bullied in middle school, very much bullied in middle school about my appearance. Nothing to do with me being unattractive, just stuff surrounding my weight and being scrutinized for that. And so I entered my freshman year like just recovering from the eating disorder. So I was pretty I had the symptoms for anorexia at age 13 through 14. I was just never officially diagnosed, Pretty sure I had the symptoms, and I was starving and over exercising for months on end. So I entered just really recovering from the symptoms of an eating disorder on my own. I was never hospitalized, none of that, because I never let it get that bad. I just started eating regularly again, and I entered school, and everything just went downhill. Being in high school, everything went downhill. My freshman year, I was just in high school and just bullied out of nowhere. And I remember going into a state of shock, almost, because I was like, I can't believe this is happening again. I was just bullied all throughout middle school, and I'm just being bullied in high school, and it wasn't this bullying to the point where I was this socially isolated person. It was more like bullying to where it was like a smear campaign, stuff like that. And I was just gossiped about a lot, but I was still going out to parties, A lot of parties. I went to a lot of parties my freshman year. I was still socializing, I was making a lot of friends. I had a lot of fake friends. I had friends regardless, but they weren't real or genuine. And it's just, I was experiencing new things in my life, but yeah, I just want to get a little bit into it, just discuss it. So, my freshman year, I was in school. My freshman year, I'm thinking hard, trying to remember back. This this damn light messing with me. I be getting dizzy sometimes. So, my freshman year, I started school, and I started wrestling my freshman year. I was on a wrestling team my freshman year, and I was pretty good at the sport I was doing, the extracurricular wrestling. I was pretty good at it, but my coach was a racist, and he ended up showing favoritism towards other players simply because of money donations and stuff like that, and certain things being funded on the team. Like certain parents were contributing towards the team, so they were getting certain things for their kids and the team, because they were putting money into it, so the coach would show favoritism towards um the father's children on the team. That's how it went most of the time. And even though I was good at it, I ended up quitting my sophomore year, because mid sophomore year, I think, because I was just sick of the bullshit. I was sick of the favoritism and the special treatment, because people's fathers were paying for them to be on the team, or stuff like that, were paying for things for them to play. I was just sick of the bullshit, so I quit my sophomore year. And my coach was a racist. He was Cuban. I went to a white Cuban school, and let me tell you, the racism was off the charts. It was pretty much off the charts. But a lot of the times I got away with it because I was light skinned, so it was never really directed towards me. But there's still the racism was off the charts. And I remember sophomore year I was a wrestler, and then I ended up going to a lot of social gatherings. I went to a lot of quinceañeras because it was a Latin school, but it was white Hispanic, so I ended up going to a lot of quinceañeras and sweet it was just quinceañeras. Nobody really did sweet 16s at my school because it was just a Hispanic school that was white. So it was a lot of quinceañeras and stuff like that. And then I ended up drinking at parties. I went to football games a lot too, a lot of opening games and a lot of homecoming games, stuff like that. It was drinking at these parties, and I remember specifically making friends with these group of guys just so I could drink, just so I could drink liquor and have beers and stuff and hang out and even though they was pretty much shitty friends, fake friends, I ended up really just hanging out with these guys. We ended up drinking a lot, not drinking a lot, but we drank occasionally, and we would have pizza and play pool and play basketball and stuff like that. But they didn't like me. They hated me for whatever reason. Maybe because I was just myself and I was authentic. For whatever reason I was hated. So I was left out of some stuff. I remember at one point they had a party without me, and they got into this huge conflict or whatever over some girls or something like that. Somebody was sleeping with somebody that somebody else liked or whatever. So yeah, and then I remember really experimenting with I experimented with weed in my teenage years, but I was always around my brother, so I was always safe. The only time I ever did weed was with my brother, and then so I was being bullied too. Once again, bullied crazy, and I was just this infamous target. These people wouldn't leave me alone in school, and then I remember experimenting with weed. I remember getting drunk. That's the thing. All I wanted to do in high school was get drunk and have sex with girls. That's basically all I wanted to do in high school. I know it wasn't the best decisions, but I somehow was doing all that and still maintaining a 4.0 GPA at the time. So my grades started slipping when I started going into this deep depression with the bullying I endured, and that's another thing. I feel oftentimes what people don't understand with being a teenager is this is a really crucial time. I feel like this is the most wildest time in a person's life, the teenage years. And I feel like parents really need to pay close attention to their children. Because these are formative years, and these are years when your child, or if you're a teenager watching this, you're just coming into your own identity. So a lot of the times you're just coming into who you are, who you know you are, you're discovering who you are, and it's really tough, hard times, That's why I suggest teenagers be put in therapy, or just have some type of outlet where they can express themselves, and really just get all their emotions out, because it's really hard years, and it really sucks a lot. I remember like having to be hospitalized because of how poor my mental health was back then at age 17. Like I had to be in a hospital, and it was just really, really traumatic. It was just the most traumatic times of my life ever, from my preteens to my teenage years. My early adulthood was the most traumatic ever, and it was so rocky. I'm glad I survived it. It just shows a testament to my inner strength, and I remember at one point thinking like, oh my God, I'll be so happy if I make it past my 18th birthday or my 17th birthday, because I really felt like I was gonna die around that time, because it was so like traumatic and wild. I was experimenting with a lot of stuff, and like mainly weed and alcohol, and like I just wanted to really have a girlfriend. I wanted to have a girlfriend so bad in high school, I got into high school not thinking about dating. Then everybody started dating, and that was like the only thing I could think about for all of high school, getting a girlfriend. And spoiler alert, I never got one, but I still shot my shot a lot of the times at different girls. That's another thing too. My thing with me, even though dating has been a failure for me overall in life, I was still that guy who was probably handsome enough to get women's phone numbers. So I was like, even as a kid in elementary school, I was always texting girls. In my high school, I was texting so many girls, like different girls, and like just flirting and like just really like building up their rapport, I was approaching girls in school, getting phone numbers. It never really amounted to anything, but still I was still doing it. I was still kissing girls, just really trying to live my life, and yeah. But around this time, I started to just come into my own identity as being bisexual, and this is when I had to be hospitalized, because around that time it was really a daunting thing for me to do, to come out. And I didn't end up coming out later. I didn't end up coming out until later, until I was I think I was age 18. I think I was 19 when I first came out, and it was to a person I had met randomly. And then I came out at age 20 to like my mom, and then later my family and brother at age 20. It was really, really a tough time for me, and I don't look back on it with fondness. Some parts I do look back on with fondness, because sometimes I just feel like I was just such a little badass. I was just like this little like I wasn't like the good kids, the kids that just wanted to like, study and watch anime or some shit, or like be like in the house all the time. I was such this badass to the point where I wanted to drink, and I wanted to like do all that shit, experiment with all that stuff, and like really experience my life at that time. That's what I look on with fondness. Not all the shit I went through with all the bullshit and like the being an outcast. I really look on with fondness about just the fact that I had this like this go-getter attitude. Like, damn, I'm gonna live my life, like I'm gonna fucking drink, I'm gonna smoke weed, I'm gonna chase girls, I'm gonna do what I want to do. And I did it. That's what I look back on with fondness. I wasn't just some fucking like, sorry for cursing, I wasn't some person that was just like to themselves and antisocial in high school. I was a person that just wanted to experience life, and I ended up doing it. That's what I look back on with fondness. And that's why I feel like to me, nobody is a loser in high school, because we're all at different phases in our lives. But I feel like I was definitely not one of the kids that was like see, I was still studying and getting good grades too in the first 2 years of my high school career. So until I started slipping into my depression and like having to be hospitalized my junior and senior year. But I feel like before, I just wasn't one of the kids that was like, that just didn't, I wasn't one of the kids that didn't try, you know, that didn't try to have a life, you know, the kids that just didn't try to like experience new things. I wasn't one of those kids that just kept to themselves, you know. I was just out there experiencing life, going to parties, texting girls, you know, having friends, hanging out, even though I was still heavily bullied, but like, and I was this infamous case in school, you know. But I still feel like I did everything I wanted to do in my teenage years, and that's what I look back on with the likeness and like happy thoughts about. You know, I'm a go-getter, you know, that's what I've always been in life. And it's more to me than meets eye. I'm complex, you know. But these years weren't the best, you know. I wouldn't do it over not for $1 billion. Would not do this shit over because I might end up dead the second time. I have no clue. It was that traumatic, you know. And I feel like is it something like in the movies, like where they like with Euphoria or like stuff like that, shows like that? No, because I went to a Catholic school and not a high school, you know. But even those serious thematic shows, like I feel like nothing like that happened to me, but it was almost like that, just a little bit, probably like 30%. It was like that. I still experienced like the social aspects and the partying and like the relationships and like the drinking and stuff like that. I experienced that to a certain degree, but it was nothing like how it is in the movies, you know. But these years are so tough because, you know, you're a teenager, you're coming into your own identity, you're coming into being an adult, you know, and it's just really stressful years, you know. I always tell my little cousin, like, I'm like, I know how hard it is to be a teenager. Like, I just try to give him words of wisdom, you know. And people think being a teenager is all about school and shit. It's not. It's really not. It's other things involved, and it's just some hard, tough years, you know. That's why it's end up being so it's so horrible, you know, for a lot of people. All right, y'all. I just wanted to give y'all that little anecdote or whatever they say, you know. All right, y'all. Take care.